Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? So this is, in fact, yesterday I was listening to the IDACON session, and I'll talk about 3 points which Dr. Nanthi mentioned. One was about making food, functional food, affordable and accessible for the rural farmer to the urban professional. Okay, that's one point. Second point was what Dr. Bhaskaracharya mentioned about what goes into the plate is less important than what goes out of the plate. Okay, so we have to look at what goes out of the plate more importantly than what goes into the plate. So we'll be talking about, that's the reason I talk about the perfect plate in this context. And then the last one was when Dr. Asim Dattaroy mentioned about anti-inflammation. And he also mentioned that India has to focus on India's cherry fruit. He talked about how Oslo is looking at cherry fruit. We have to look at what is India's fruit, which we can help India's own problems, right? So that's the context with which I'll be talking about. But I also have the challenge of taking you from California nuts to Kerala jackfruit. In fact, I'll tell you one story about in April 2016, last year. I got an email from my friend in California, and he mentioned that, James, California has gone nuts over jackfruit. You must bring it to California. And it came from the Google Food Trends. In April 2016, the Google Food Trends talked about the number one was turmeric and number two was jackfruit. And the jackfruit's narration was about the vegan meat alternate, the tender jackfruit or the young jackfruit being used as a meat alternate in California that is caught fire. And when I read that, I said, it is like telling a Native American child that Christopher Columbus discovered America. A Native American's ancestors always lived in America, right? So where does the narrative of eating jackfruit as a meat alternate come from? How many of you have heard about the word gachpate? Gachpata? Have you heard about it?
We say the same thing, gachpata.
Gachpata, okay? Echor, gachpata. Gachpata means what? A mutton which grows on the tree. So the Bengali ancestors always knew a green jackfruit or the pediatric jackfruit can be used as a meat alternate. So that narration actually originates from Kerala. That is the reason why I wanted to come to Calcutta and talk about it. And the second reason I'll talk about, so I ended up with jackfruit. This is my fourth child. Jackfruit is my fourth child. I got 3 girls, and this is my adopted son. Okay, so for the last 4 years, I've been campaigning for jackfruit. And we'll talk about the perfect plate for diabetes, from the Mediterranean plate to the green jackfruit meal of Kerala, and why it is good for diabetes. And why I chose to come to IDACON is because of the statement made by a senior cardiologist when I gave a talk, a CME, continuing medical education class for doctors in Kerala. And the cardiologist told me, James, if a good doctor can manage diabetes, a good dietitian can reverse it. How many of you believe in this? Do you think a dietitian can reverse diabetes? At the end of this talk, let's see if you agree with me on this. Okay? So the first is WHO action plan for non-communicable diseases. Okay, there are 6 action plans, of which number 2 is increase vegetable and fruit consumption, make it affordable and accessible, right? And the number 6 is reduce energy density, reduce calories in our food, right? Those are 2 major reasons, okay? Keep that in mind. And then what does American Diabetes Association say? Okay, so there is a dietary approach to fight diabetes. Okay, and the top 3 diets are Mediterranean diet, then the DASH diet, and then finally the plant-based diet. These are the 3 which has been recommended by the American Diabetes Association. So we will be talking in this context. It's called fundamental nutrition therapy. Medical nutrition therapy is what is recommended in the plate, in the guidance. Okay, so how I started with jackfruit, this is 2014 April. Father Thomas came to me and narrated an incident. And green jackfruit meal is the oldest carbohydrate replacement of Kerala. The mature green, it's called, I call the adult jackfruit. So the enchorer is the pediatric jackfruit, the tender jackfruit. And the ripe jackfruit is what I call the geriatric jackfruit, which is sweet, and people either love it or you hate it. Okay, that's the geriatric jackfruit. But what is in between, 2 days before it becomes sweet, like the raw mango, it is neutral in color, neutral in taste, and it's not sweet. And that is the mature green jackfruit, what is called as chakka in Kerala. That is the adult jackfruit. So we're talking about the adult jackfruit that is used as a meal. So this priest took a jackfruit meal for dinner along with the fish curry, and he had a guest who wanted to eat the jackfruit meal, so he was late in taking his insulin and took his insulin after 50 minutes, and he collapsed right there. And he somehow was able to reach out a packet of sugar and put it in his mouth, and he was lying on the floor for 2 hours, and he got the energy to get up and check his sugar level. It was 50. So he had a hypoglycemic incident as soon as he took the insulin. So till then, Kerala for the last 50 years was saying that if you're diabetic, do not touch jackfruit. That was the jackfruit meal was not to be eaten. That was the recommendation. So I had to find out what is causing this. So what is green jackfruit meal? The top 3 ingredients are green jackfruit, coconut, turmeric. Okay, and we'll come to that later. So that's how it is prepared. And then at the nutrition level, so I did a fundamental nutrition analysis of the green jackfruit versus what we know, what is displacing. What goes out of the plate is rice or roti, right? So when you take it as a meal, what gets displaced is rice or roti. So you have to compare the nutrition values against rice and roti. So when we did the comparison, we found out the carbohydrate was 40% low. For the same serving says calorie was 70 with rice and 115 calorie low with 2 rotis. Okay, so the calorie and carbohydrate was low. And then we look at, is there any published information out there to prove that jackfruit is bad for diabetes? Because at the fundamental nutrition, carbohydrate and calorie is lower than rice and wheat, so it has to be good. But why would anyone say it is not good, right? So I did a research on, is there any published information? The answer was no. There was no published information which says jackfruit is bad for diabetes. The next question is there any published information which says jackfruit is good for diabetes, right? And we found one, which was in Ceylon Medical Journal, published an article on the glycemic study on green jackfruit meal. Only Kerala and Sri Lanka has the culture of eating green jackfruit as a meal. So they had done a glycemic study on this, and as shown in the glycemic graph, normal food, when you take it, the sugar level goes up, and over 2 hours it comes down. But with the jackfruit meal, as you can see on the graph, it goes up, and after 30 minutes, it takes a drop. Okay, after 30 minutes, it drops. So this priest took his insulin after 50 minutes. So it was already going down, and when he took his insulin, it became hyperactive. So seeing this graph and what happened to the priest, I could easily predict what happened. So there was a logical reason why the priest collapsed, right? So then I looked at, okay, this is Ceylon Medical, there is one data. Can I find more data on this? So we looked at nutritiondata.com. This is what many nutritionists look up, right? This is called estimated glycemic load. So in Ceylon Medical Journal earlier, it says the glycemic load was 13, and the estimated glycemic load was 16. And I then sent the green jackfruit of Kerala over to Sydney University. And Sydney University Glycemic Index Research Service is the world's best in glycemic study. And they did the study on green jackfruit of Kerala. And this is what we got. The glycemic load of green jackfruit was 17 compared to a cup of rice is 29. 2 rotis is 27. So the glycemic load is 40% less. So if you low calorie, low carbohydrate, and lower glycemic load versus rice and wheat. So it has to be better than rice and wheat, correct? That is fundamental nutrition, right? So it has become very clear that it is actually better than rice and wheat. So the scientific explanation why green jackfruit is good for diabetes, it's possible to eat as a meal, okay? Second, it's lower calories, it is lower carbohydrate, lower glycemic load, and because of high fiber and water content, the satiety is high. You feel full for longer, right? So these are the scientific reasons why green jackfruit is better than rice and wheat. But then there is a common sense explanation, okay? And this is when you come back to the American Diabetes Association's recommended plate, we look at the Mediterranean plate. This is considered as the perfect plate, correct? 50% of the plate is green, 25% is carbohydrate, 25% is protein. This is the perfect plate, okay? What I call the neutral calorie plate, right? So when we do that, so let's look at what happens when you put jackfruit here. So chakka it's known as chakka in Kerala, and in Tamil it's called palakkai. In Kannada it's called halsinakai. In Telugu it's called panasakkai, and in Hindi it is kacha katal, right? So what is kai? What is the English word for kai? A kai is not a fruit. A kai is a green fruit. The English word for kai is a green fruit. And when it is sweet, it is the fruit. Okay, it's palam or param. Okay, so chakka palam or pala palam is the sweet one. So before it is like raw mango, it is a vegetable, it is a green. Okay, so when you replace a green with a grain, what happens to the plate? Okay, so this is the oldest plate of Kerala when rice was expensive. So 50% of the plate was the green jackfruit meal. Then you have a protein curry, and you finish off with the expensive rice porridge. And how does this compare with the perfect plate? So this is Kerala's Mediterranean plate. 50% of the plate is green. 25% is carbohydrate, 25% is protein, right? Do you agree this is the perfect plate? Correct? So this is the perfect plate, right? Now, how does this compare to average Indian plate? Our Indian plate is at least 50% carbohydrate. Okay, 25% of this plate is causing 75% of our non-communicable diseases, because we have doubled our carbohydrate and we halved our greens. Okay, so we have to reduce grains and increase greens, right? But this is all good because the Kerala jackfruit meal, nobody is going to eat, right? So what do? So I was invited to give a talk of the leading doctors of allopathy, Ayurveda and naturopathy in Kerala. And I didn't know anything about diabetes. And my opening slide was, can green jackfruit be the reverse gear of India's diabetes? At that time, I didn't even know that diabetes is a progressive disease. It is an irreversible progressive disease. I didn't even know. But just for argument's sake, I put it there so that I can provoke them to think. Okay? And then what happened? The doctor who spoke after me, he had read that I talked about Father Thomas's hypoglycemic incident. It came on paper, and he was academically curious. He started a pilot study. And he put 36 people on the pilot study. 18 were given 100 grams of green jackfruit meal for lunch, and the balance will be rice. The other 18 had rice as the main meal. And after 3 months, he gave us the data, and it was jaw-dropping. 80% of the population on the jackfruit control had to reduce their insulin dose. And 60% of them had HbA1c reduction. In March, this got published. This is published information. It's already on published scientific evidence, right? But he also gave me, I went back to his hospital, to his clinic, and he walked me through one case where one patient continued with the jackfruit diet because he liked the jackfruit meal. And after 2 months, he showed me the data, and the patient's HbA1c was below normal, 6.2, had not taken medicine for the last 2 months. He used to take 64 units of insulin before. And for the past 2 months, he has not taken insulin, and his HbA1c is below normal, FBS and PPS was below normal. That is the first time it triggered me, there could be a potential reversal here. If the person has not taken medicine for 2 months, and HbA1c is low, there is a possibility, right? And then I happened to meet the priest again. So when I went back and told him about the Ceylon Medical Journal article, I took the first picture, which is in January 2015. In December 2015, I met him again, and I got scared. And anyone who has got the eye for detail, if you look at the collar of the second picture, you can see the gap between the collar and his neck. He had lost 12 kilos. He stopped eating rice and wheat completely. And he was taking green jackfruit as a meal, along with the protein curry, and wherever possible, he'll take legumes. He will not touch rice and wheat. And for 7 years, he was taking 2,000 rupees worth of insulin every month. And he stopped it completely. He doesn't touch insulin at all. Okay? At this time, I got curious, is there any scientific evidence out there to prove that diabetes can be reversed through diet? Okay, and that is when I found out a Banding Memorial lecture by Professor Roy Taylor of Newcastle University. And Sir Banding is the one who discovered it's possible to extract insulin from animal pancreas and inject that on patients. And he's the Nobel laureate for discovering that. It's almost 100 years. And the Banding Memorial lecture in 2014 was Professor Roy Taylor, and he talked about the twin cycle hypothesis, that how do we get diabetes? It's an effect of hypercalorie diet. For months and years, when you take more calorie than your body is burning, it first gets into adipose tissues, then it gets into your liver as non-alcoholic fatty liver, and over time it gets into your pancreas as pancreatic fat. So first liver fat, then the pancreatic fat. As the pancreatic fat increases, your beta cells gets killed. That is what we were told. The beta cells gets killed, so it loses the ability to produce insulin, right? So he then put people on a hypocalorie diet. They get less calorie than they're burning. And what happens? First, the fat is drawn out from the liver. Then it is drawn out from the pancreas. As the pancreatic fat was coming down, the insulin production increased. The irreversible diabetes has been reversed. So the beta cells were not dying, they were sleeping. And they were woken up as the pancreatic fat came down, and the beta cells started producing insulin. So he could see that the insulin production has increased in the pancreas. That was the real reversal. And this study was replicated in Chellaram Diabetes Institute in Pune. And both are published. Now, Professor Taylor's study has been published many times. The latest one, just 2 weeks ago in Lancet, it was a 1,000 people study from Glasgow, was published in Lancet. And Chellaram Institute of Diabetes was published at Indian Journal for Endocrinology and Metabolism in September 2017. Okay, so this is the first, and the difference between the two studies, Professor Taylor used very low calorie diet, which is the per meal is 200 calories, whereas Chellaram Diabetes Institute used low calorie diet, which is 300 calorie per plate. Okay, the significant difference between the two studies is that significant weight loss in UK, but in India, they were able to show that the reversal happens without significant weight loss. And the only plausible way to explain that is Indian genetic disposition means you can catch diabetes even if you don't gain significant weight. So the converse is also true. So without significant loss of weight, you could still reverse this condition, right? So that is the low calorie effect. Now, how does jackfruit fits into low calorie? So let's look at the average Indian plate. As I told you earlier, it is 50% carbohydrate. This is the South Indian plate, which is more than 650 calories or more. If you have a second serving of rice, it definitely goes over. And the biggest energy component here is the carbohydrate, the grains, right? This is North Indian plate. You replace rice with roti, same thing. Now, the Kerala plate, which is the green jackfruit. So 1 cup of green jackfruit is just over 100 calories. Okay, so this is what I call a neutral calorie plate. So you have 500 calorie per plate, right? You can put any vegetable here, you will still achieve the same 500 calorie plate. It's what I call a neutral calorie plate. Okay, and yesterday Dr. Dattaroy mentioned about the 5-2 diet of UK, right? Which is 5 days you take a neutral calorie plate, and 2 days you go low calorie. Okay, that's the 5-2 diet plate which we talked about, right? Now, what Father Thomas did was he actually skipped the rice completely. What you end up with is a 300 calorie plate. Okay, 100 calorie from the jackfruit and 200 calorie from the protein. So you end up with a 300 calorie plate. Now what happens with this? You're on a low calorie diet, but all low calorie diets are a liquid diet. What is the biggest failure in that? Satiety. Right? This one gives you satiety. You feel full for longer, right? So that is the main one. And that is when my book got published, and the first copy went to Dr. Kalam. And Dr. Kalam invited me for a meeting, and he went through it, and he said, this is pure science. This is not medicine. A high fiber meal always translates to low absorption of sugar. That is pure science. There is only one thing new here. It's possible to eat an unripe fruit as a meal. Most fruits you cannot, because the acidity is very high. The jackfruit, the acidity is very low. That is why Kerala, we were able to eat this in quantity. The body doesn't reject. Okay? So you must find a way to add this to what people normally eat. You can't expect. And two profound statements in this journey. One was what Dr. Kalam told me. It's easier to change religion than changing eating habits. You cannot expect people to eat the Kerala jackfruit meal, but diabetes is a much bigger problem for India. You must find a way to add this to what people normally eat. It took 2 years of engineering. Every ounce of engineering left in me to figure out a way to add this to idli and roti. How can we add this to idli and roti was the challenge. And what we did was, we actually made a flour, a green jackfruit flour, like rice flour and wheat flour, and with the binding factor squarely between rice and wheat. So which means you could add this to a rice flour or rice batter dish or a wheat flour dish. Okay, up to a third and you can't make out. There is absolutely no difference in taste or texture. So this is an idli. You have dosa, you have putta, you have idiyappam, which is Kerala. And then you have the North Indian, you have a fulka, you have puri, you have paratha. So then, this started spreading, and then we have, this is just giving you an example of, this is an Ayurveda hospital in Kerala. They're doing this for breakfast and lunch is jackfruit diet. Okay, what is the number one point here? Jackfruit diet is very fulfilling. Okay, and two things happens. It's fulfilling because you're happy, and second, great bowel movement because of the high fiber and filling. So you get great bowel movement, and in a matter of 7 days, FBS values dropped by 15 in 2 weeks, and they asked people to do their HbA1c before coming to this session. And in 2 weeks, they can see an HbA1c drop of 0.5 points. And many people have to reduce their medication. Okay, so this is, and what is another thing which frequently I get feedback is the frequent urination comes down because there is an immediate drop in sugar levels, and the consequences. I have one patient who says, I could only sleep 90 minutes at a stretch. Now I can sleep 4 hours. Okay, these are the positive benefits of it. So, and here is an urban professional, marathon runner. For 12 years he was running to control his diabetes. Just by 30 grams of the jackfruit flour in his idli and in his roti in the night, he could lose 2 kilos and reduce his medicine by half. And the best story I have is when I gave Kerala Agriculture Department called me to give a talk on value addition with jackfruit. And when I gave the talk about they should start eating jackfruit meal, one farmer stood up and said, till last year I used to sell tender jackfruit. It used to go to all mandis across India. Last year I didn't sell a single jackfruit. I let it grow as a mature jackfruit, as a chakka, and I ate all of them. And he said he used to take 54 units of insulin till then, and he doesn't touch insulin anymore. So this is what I call affordable and accessible. 2,000 crores worth of jackfruit goes waste in India. Okay, so that is what we have done. Now I'll show you. If you have questions, we'll also, the first one will be my invented product, which is the green jackfruit flour. So the grain to green is anything which you eat. So look at the center of the plate. And if you want to have a neutral calorie, you replace only a third. If you want a low calorie, you increase the amount of jackfruit and reduce the amount of grains. So grain to green conversion in the plate is all you need to do. You can make a 100% meal with it, like instead of millets. So the low calorie, in fact, compared to oats, you have 40% more soluble fiber per calorie. So the significant drop in calories is what you get. So before I go to the next one, do you have any doubts about it? The fundamental nutrition? Is there any doubt? Do you now have any doubt that a dietitian can reverse diabetes? No doubt? It is diet. Only diet can reverse. And all of you, I encourage you to read up on the VLCD, very low calorie diet. This is the breakthrough in medical science. That what is known as irreversible for almost 100 years has been proven to be reversible.
The challenge always with VLCD was satiety, as you said.
Correct. No. And it is not just jackfruit. You have to ask dietitians. I encourage you to look at every community around us. What were they eating before rice and wheat was made affordable and accessible? You will find many such solutions like green jackfruit. And if you think it's not convenient, I'm an engineer, I'll figure it out. You let me know. Okay, it's not just jackfruit. But this is what the key is: high satiety, low calorie is the reverse gear. Okay, we have to focus on.
As you see. And it can be easily blended.
It can be easily blended. So we have to make it, affordable and convenient. So you can't expect people to take, in fact, I have it shrink wrapped because it's so sticky, right? So this is a jackfruit. Has anyone not seen a jackfruit? So this is the what I call the never seen it. This is what I call the pediatric jackfruit. This is the tender baby jackfruit. Okay, if you let it grow for another 2 months, it will become a 10-kilo baby hippopotamus, and the seed will become hard. Okay, and the fruit will get bigger, and that is what is eaten in Kerala as a meal. Okay, and if you leave it for another 2 days, it will become ripe and golden yellow in color, and it has got significant fragrance. You either love it or you hate it. Okay, that is the right. So, but the green jackfruit is neutral. It's like potato. There is absolutely no flavor.
I had a question, sir. If one cooks it the way it's usually cooked, with all the ingredients as in the masala or whatever, I hope the nutrient value is not lost. Is that,
Good question. Good question. So what is the number one nutrient? In fact, Ayurveda text clearly said, panasam madhyapakvam levanadi yuktam, which is mid-ripe jackfruit has the minerals at its peak. And they specifically talk about the soluble fiber, which is pectin. Okay, and as all of you know, pectin is an excellent prebiotic, right? So when we developed the flour, I had to ensure that the flour retains the maximum amount of pectin. The traditional way of cooking jackfruit was, it only takes 10 minutes of steam cooking. Okay, so it's crunchy. So how do you retain the nutrients? The least amount of heat, the least amount of water, and the least amount of time. So the crunchy vegetable, in fact, I wrote a column for Economic Times last Sunday on why we need to encourage the tradition of eating vegetable chaat or the fruit chaat, which is fresh vegetable, crunchy vegetables, right? Whereas we cook a lot of vegetables to death. So even the 25% sabji which we eat, most of them are not nutrient rich because we cook them, we boil them, right? We cook them to a mash. So we lose a lot of soluble fiber in that. So the answer is, it is 100, so you get almost 4% soluble fiber among the 13% of total fiber.
Yeah, of course. How do you prepare the flour from the jackfruit?
Okay, so dehydrated and powdered. It is dehydration, it's machine dried, but we use a combination of multiple drying technologies. It should have the binding, it should have the soluble fiber, it should be low calorie, low carbohydrate, and it should not disturb the food. So the roti, or in fact, if you have time, I'll show you one video of how to make the fulka, how to make the idli. Do you want to? Okay, we're running out of time, so we don't need to. But one question, I will give you the flour. Anybody wants one pack for you to try? Okay, there you go. I think she asked the question.
I wanted to know about the nutrient value of the flour.
Everything's mentioned.
Okay.
And where is it available at the moment?
So it's available through Amazon across India, and in big cities it's available through Godrej Nature's Basket, Spar Hypermarket, and in Kerala it is available across 3,000 shops. So we decided to launch in Kerala first, but it's available through Amazon and Kolkata. I realized we don't have it here, so we will definitely bring it here. So with this green jackfruit, by replacing rice and wheat, we achieve two objectives in one go, right? Increase vegetable and fruit intake and reduce calorie. We achieve both in one go, right? So info@jackfruit365.com, and if you want to access any of the published scientific information, it's on our website, jackfruit365.com. You will get access to all the links. Okay, I think.
What is this? Your website?
It's jackfruit365.com.
Like you said about the jackfruit powder, but if we have proper raw jackfruit in cooked form, one bowl, and we reduce the quantity of rice or chapati, it works.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Yeah. So that is what the farmers are doing in Kerala now. They just prepare it at home, and that is it.
In sabji form we are having, and we are reducing the rice or chapati.
So if you do an enchora dalna, or a typical enchora dalna, right? You have to have it with a fish curry, and stop taking the rice.
In Bengal, jackfruit is very, very popular, of course, and we add all the necessary ingredients of garlic and onion and really make it tasty. So would it be a wholesome meal if one has it with rice and some jackfruit, or it has to be a jackfruit with only some vegetables or some salad? What if one wants to have it with a chapati?
No, so chapati is the problem.
Okay.
Okay, so replacing another sabji won't help.
Okay, so you mean when you're saying jackfruit vegetable, which I have made for myself, I need to have it with something.
With the paneer curry.
Okay, so that would be like a protein and a.
Protein. So protein and
Jackfruit as a carb source.
Okay,
So you're replacing your cereal.
so that's a fibrous carb which I'm having.
correct.
And I have combined it with the paneer, which is a high protein. for me.
Yeah. So rice and wheat has to go out of the plate.
Totally.
The concept earlier was that we used to eat jackfruit as a sabji.
Yes.
So then the
That's what
total
you've
load
always
of
done.
the total load of carbs increases. That same
Right.
thing happens with potato.
Right.
The Mexicans, they eat potato as a staple food.
Right.
So then potato is good.
Yeah.
But now when we all take potato as a sabji and
Yeah.
then it becomes a big load.
Yeah.
So it's just a
So
matter
it's
of
too much
understanding
carbs
how
on the
to
plate.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For this wonderful presentation. And I would request Dr. Lata Shashi to come forward and hand the token of appreciation and thanks to Mr. Joseph.